chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and I wanted to share a little bit about my story. It's actually a pretty long story, but it started about, I would say, 13 years ago. I had a 1-year-old child, and I was working full-time as a social worker. I love my career. I love my 2 children. My daughter, she was probably at the time maybe kindergarten, 1st grade, and life was good, but something just wasn't right. And I started having these horrible breathing symptoms and asthma attacks, and as time went on, it just continued to spiral. I started having these horrible migraine headaches. At the time when I was at work, I noticed when I was at the building at my place of work that it was worse. I worked in a big city, and I had to travel about an hour to work every day, and the migraine started getting worse and worse. And then I went to a chiropractor thinking maybe they could help, and at that point I started having vertigo, and the vertigo would just come and go. One day I was there, and I just had this horrible episode of vertigo where I just couldn't even function, and they ended up calling the ambulance. I thought that maybe just something with being at work was not working right, and I thought maybe it was a long drive, so at some point I had to quit my job. What I didn't realize is at the time, I never put 2 and 2 together until many years later, was that at my place of work there was water running down into our basement. There was water in the conference room. We had a lot of our meetings in that conference room, and they had to open up the ceiling to let the water drain out. And a couple of years ago, my doctor had actually approached me and said, "Darcee, I think you've been exposed to mold, and I think that that's a piece that's going on with your health." And so she is the one who introduced me to the concept of chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is also known as sick building syndrome. Now, that was about 13 years ago, and a lot has happened since then. About 10 years ago, in 2009, I was at a new job. I liked my job good. I had my 2 children, and then I was pregnant again. And while I was pregnant, we were up in northern Wisconsin with my family, up in the woodsy area in Washburn County, which is actually a pretty high area for Lyme disease. So there's a lot of people that have contracted in that area. And I was taking a shower, and I found a tick on my leg, and I was kind of freaked out about it because I was like, "Oh, a tick!" But I thought, "Oh well," and it didn't really think about it after that. We took it off, and life went on. Well, a couple weeks later, I started having these bizarre symptoms. I remember being at work. I was I had been just promoted to a new job. I was a social worker, the activity director, and I was running a unit, and got this big promotion, and I was feeling really good about myself, and I was getting a lot of training in on being a management position and trying to just enhance my career. And I was at work, and I noticed that when we were doing like an exercise where we had to stand, and I noticed that something just didn't feel right with my legs. And I felt like the floor was like tilting back and forth as something was crooked. And I thought, well, that's weird. I thought, man, I was in my 30s at the time, and I thought, boy, I didn't know that being pregnant in your 30s was going to be so rough, because I thought, what kind of crazy, pregnancy symptoms are this? And so that was just the start of just a spiral of symptoms. And then I started having the vertigo again, and the vertigo kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I thought, wow, this is just a rough pregnancy. And it never dawned on me that I had Lyme disease or anything else. 4 months later, I had my baby. I had the tick bite in September, and then January I had my baby, thinking that, oh, now finally I'll feel better. But that didn't happen. I thought that once I had my baby that it would go away, and it didn't. So here I am, a mom in my 30s with 3 kids, and just daily vertigo and just all these bizarre symptoms, and I didn't know what to do. So what did I do? I thought maybe I was crazy. I thought something was wrong with me, so I hid it. I didn't tell anybody. My husband knew something wasn't right. I was afraid to tell people at work. So I took my time off work, and I went back to work feeling like there was something not right. I couldn't stand on my own anymore. Everything was constantly spinning. I went to work every day afraid that someone might find out. I used to walk down the hall, and I'd have to hold onto the walls of the hall just to be able to walk upright. And I was just so scared because I just was afraid of what was going on. And so I did this for several months. I went to the doctor. No one could figure out what was wrong with me. My doctor told me, maybe you need some counseling. They tried some different medications. Nothing worked. I went for different testing. I went for vertigo testing. I got a referral to the Dizzy Balance Center, and no one could figure out what was wrong with me. I was in physical therapy for a while. I went to a vestibular therapist, and I was really feeling good about things. She was helping me. I was taking walks. I was just determined I was going to get past this. And then just one day, I ended up in the ER because I started having these severe chest pains, and I started getting really weak and in pain all the time. And it was just getting to the point that I was walking 3 miles a day, and then I couldn't walk anymore. And then one day I was listening to a radio show from Susie Larson, who is an author and a speaker, and she has chronic Lyme disease, and she did an episode on chronic Lyme disease, and she was doing an interview, and I thought to myself, that's me. They were talking about their symptoms, and that's when I realized that maybe I have Lyme disease. And so I started asking around. I switched clinics because I felt like the doctors weren't listening to me and believing me. So I found a new doctor, a new clinic, and she believed me. And so she tested me, and then I got diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. This was 2 years after my tick bite that I finally knew what was going on. But she said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You either need to see a Lyme literate doctor, or you need to see a practitioner that specializes in Lyme. And so there was a lot of research that had to be done, and a lot of work. I was just relieved to know what it was, but I had no idea what I was in for. No idea. I had a 1-year-old son, and that I had to take care of, and I didn't know how I was going to, because once they put me on antibiotics, I thought that was going to do it, and the antibiotics just set the disease in worse. And then I started having horrible neurological symptoms and herpes, and it caused me to get so sick that I was bedridden for 2 months. And I had a baby to care for, and I had a daughter that was in 6th grade. I had to care for my other son, and I just didn't know what I was going to do. It was so scary. I thought I was dying, and it didn't have any hope. But I just trusted in the Lord, and I just kept going every day. People didn't understand, and I had no idea what I was in for because I didn't have a support network. But I just kept fighting through and taking a day at a time. And I just couldn't even tell you. I started having Parkinson's shakes and just horrible neurological problems. I lost use of my legs. And it was horrible. It was like waking up in a nightmare that never went away. And it was like this for years. But I just kept fighting because I looked at those beautiful kids of mine and I said, I can't not fight. I can't die. I've got to live for these kids. And that's what I did. And this went on for 5 years, and it took 5 years to treat Lyme and the co-infections before I went to remission. And I was almost kind of at that point, and I had a horrible relapse back in 2016. And once again, I was bedridden, and it was horrible, day in, day out, just trying to fight to even live. Dealing with vibrating all over my body, Parkinson-like symptoms, had no use for my legs. The nerve damage was just so severe that I just never fully recovered. Today, things are much better now. I'm considered to be in remission, and I can do a lot of things I was not able to before, but there is permanent impairment right now. I don't know if it will always be permanent, but I've just come to live and accept where I'm at. I do need a wheelchair in public places because I have what I call sea legs. I have trouble still walking when I'm going long distance or if I'm outside or in public. So usually when I walk, I either need some kind of a device to help with my balance. But I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful for my life. I'm thankful that I'm past the worst of it. I'm so thankful for my family. I just think that every day I think about what a blessing life is and how I don't want to take anything for granted again. So if I go to a movie with my daughter, or my husband and I go on a date, or even cleaning the house is such a huge blessing for me. And I just thank the Lord for my life. And so that's the heart of what my mission is about, is saying that you can go through the worst of circumstances, you can go through your worst nightmare, but you can come out a victor. And I want to be a victor, and I want people out there to know if they've gone through chronic Lyme or they've gone through a chronic illness, that you can still enjoy life in its fullest. And that's what I do, is every day I just thank the Lord for my life.
Hello, my name is Annika. I am almost 20. I'm in the process of becoming a band instrument repairman. So I fix things like flute, clarinet, saxophone, trumpet, things like that. Like my mother, I also have chronic Lyme disease. I started struggling with my issues with migraines and other things like that in my freshman year of high school. That would have been in 2014 or 2015, somewhere in that area. As I went through my high school career, I started developing more and more health ailments, and we were having a hard time figuring out what the heck was going on, how a lot of this was related. So in the summer before my first year of college, this would have been in 2018, I had a traditional doctor do some blood work with me in an effort to see if she can help me figure out what is wrong and how I can, like, what is causing all of this and how I can treat it. And a certain blood test showed that I had previously had Lyme disease. However, it was dormant because my immune system had it under control. Instrument repair school is surprisingly intense, and because instrument repair is a trade like auto repair or construction work or things like that, and some of those skills take years to get under control, like it, for example, for a jewelry maker, it takes that person years to really hone in his craft and become successful. And that's the same process of band instrument repair. These three teachers, they are giving this task to cram all of this work into a few shorter classes, if that makes sense. So the class is pretty intense, and so as I'm dealing with the intensity of the class, the stress kind of suppressed my immune system a little bit, as you will. And so long story short, I had a Lyme flare-up. How did I figure this out? So as time is going by, I'm starting to notice that my joints keep locking up, and I've always had issues with pain in my joints, but they would start locking up. So when I first started filming, I felt my neck lock up and then click. And so it happens in my neck. It would happen in my shoulders, in my elbows, in my wrists, in my knees, my hips, my ankles, sometimes I would feel it in my back, but usually it happened in my wrists. And this was very noticeable because of me having to walk around to use different machinery and how much I have to use my hands for my trade. In 2014, I believe it was, I got hit in the head and was given mild concussions 3 times. It kind of messed my skull up a little bit, so I've been seeing a craniosacral therapist for that. And so the next time I saw him, I was like, hey, my joints keep locking up and getting stuck and doing dumb things like that. Can you please fix this for me? Because he checked them, and because they weren't stuck, he didn't find an issue. So he was like, hey, Annika, have you ever been diagnosed with Lyme disease before? Because this is a symptom that I tend to see in some of my Lyme patients. So I was like, because, I told him about this blood test I had received. My mother and I, we contacted my alternative healthcare physician, and she did some testing, and sure enough, I was having a Lyme disease flare-up. And when I began to treat this, I got really sick, so that did make school pretty dang difficult because I had gotten so sick. I started having weird issues, I would have stomach trouble and headaches. I would wake up every morning with my heart pounding really hard and having issues with heart palpitations and things like that. I started having issues with my energy. If I attempted a set of stairs, I would literally have to handle it like an elderly person, like, because it would make me that tired, and just all of these really weird issues as I started going through the process of treating it. At this point, I still struggle with some of the issues that came up during the treatment process and like during the flare-up incident, but my Lyme disease is considered to be in remission, which is great. So right now, we are sort of just in that awkward process of getting my outstanding or remaining symptoms under control and making sure everything is okay before I return for my second year of instrument repair school. Some things that still remain. I still look like an old person when I go up the stairs. Usually it's either I will have to sit down and take a break for a couple minutes after taking a flight of stairs, or I have to go up really, really slow and like pause after every step to keep myself from getting super tired. And you know, the joint clickiness, like, it happens on a very rare occasion in my hips and my knees, but in most of my joints it stopped happening. It still happens in my wrists, and it still happens in my neck quite a bit, like on a daily basis, but for the most part, for the rest of my body, it is more under control. Like I said, I might experience it in my hips or my knees or my shoulders on a rare occasion, but it's not really as much of an issue anymore. So that's where I'm at there. So some of you may have noticed that I'm having a bit of a hard time keeping eye contact with the camera, or that I seem a little bit fidgety, or that at times I might talk at an awkward speed, or this video might seem a bit awkward. And that's because Lyme disease is not the only issue I have. So my other condition is called level 1 ASD. This is also known as high functioning autistic spectrum disorder. So in other words, I have a mild case of autism. As far as I know, I received my diagnosis when I was in first grade. That would be in about 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. This happened after, like, some of my teachers was like, hey, there's something going on there. You need to figure out what that is, blah, blah, blah. So I went to several doctors, and they're like, oh no, she's a genius. There's nothing wrong with her. She's fine. A psychologist finally did an evaluation and diagnosed me with high functioning autism. I feel lucky because my case is quite mild, considering the fact that of my other medical issues. I am able to live a relatively normal life. Like, my case is very high functioning. Some things that comes with, my eye-hand coordination got affected quite a bit. So anyone who knows me from school or from my family will know that you don't want me on your sports team because I am awful at it. And I say that with a smile because I'm willing to own that now. You know, sports that's just not my strength. Another thing is I have some difficulties in social situations. Some of the good things it does, part of the reason that I chose the career path that I did is because my career path, like the world of band instrument repair and the world of music in general, in that sense, I'm told that I can see music in a way that not a lot of people can. And band instrument repair specifically requires somebody to be incredibly detail oriented and detail sensitive. So even though, you know, there are different hurdles and challenges I have to get through, I chose what I did because this is a place where autism is my strength, for lack of better terms. I had actually been thinking about starting a vlog for a while before my mom came to me and was like, hey Annika, I'm thinking about starting a YouTube vlog. Do you want to do it with me? You know? And I was just kind of like, yeah, sure. And some people might wonder, why are you, like, you know, what is your personal reasoning for going along with all this? The reason I was thinking about it was because I had started getting into some vloggers on YouTube, and all these vloggers had different disabilities and ailments and things, and I'll link these people in the description down below. But like, I was just kind of like, if Molly Burke can shatter people's stereotypes every day of being a big fashionista even though she is totally blind, if Mickey from Life with Stripes can continue to remain as positive as she can in her circumstances, even though she is younger than me and quite a bit sicker than me, because she has a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. If Jackie from Chronically Jackie can continue to inspire thousands of people and can encourage them to keep moving forward and have a positive outlook on even the worst of circumstances, even though Jackie died almost 2 months ago. If her best friend Janice from The Raw Life can keep her energy and her energy and her message alive, even though Janice is not only chronically ill and quite a bit of an introvert, but she is also broken by the loss of her best friend. If Drew Lynch from Dog Vlog can sustain a sports injury that will forever leave him with a speech impediment and requires a service dog, and can still make a successful career out of public speaking and more specifically comedy, it's in spite of the fact that he will never be able to communicate clearly again. Maybe if I share my story, I can make a difference too.
All right, well, now that you've heard both of our stories and a little bit about our history, we just wanted to share with you why we chose the title Heart of the Dragon, which is the title of our vlog.
So, for those of you who have seen the Chronicles of Narnia, this is inspired off of a scene in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I'll give you guys a brief description for those of you who have not seen it. So there's a certain character in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and his name is Eustace. And Eustace is a little brat, and he annoys the heck out of our two protagonists, Lucy and Edmund. So when Lucy and Edmund or Eustace are whisked off to the magical land of Narnia, Eustace turned into a dragon, and a pretty ugly dragon at that. So there was a night right after he became a dragon, and they were like on an island at a campfire, and everyone except for Eustace and a talking mouse named Reepicheep were sleeping. And Eustace and Reepicheep had never really gotten along because Eustace really hated Reepicheep. So Reepicheep noticed that Eustace was very sad because he had become an ugly dragon. So Reepicheep went and tried to talk to him, and he wanted to comfort him. And a statement he made is, you know, extraordinary things only happen to extraordinary people. Maybe it's a sign that you've got an extraordinary destiny, something greater than you could have imagined. This is the statement that starts getting Eustace to realize what he was and how he could change for the better. Now, this quote, extraordinary things only happen to extraordinary people, means two different things for us, so I'm going to let her explain first.
Okay, so I think that for me, when I thought of the idea of the heart of the dragon, I just really thought about the dragon being a part of our life that's ugly and painful. We all have dragons in our life. Sometimes our disease becomes our dragon, or parts of our personality that maybe bother us, hardships. There's so many things that are these beasts in our life that are so hard, but it's those beasts that make us strong too, and God uses those things to sanctify us and to build our hearts and build our character and make us better. I was just really intrigued with the concept of how God can use something as awful as Lyme disease, or something as difficult and challenging as autism, and those things to use for his ministry and his service, to build us up as people. He can use us in whatever situation that we're in. He can use us because God is just so amazing, and I'm just amazed at that idea. Like in Eustace's case, he was such a jerk, really. But once he became a dragon, when he was a dragon, all of a sudden he kind of gave him this great guy, and he'd take the people around for rides, and he would start the campfires, and he saw out of that dragonness, he saw who he was before. And it was that transformed him into a new person. And that's what changed his heart. And he had a total heart change. And I really truly believe that if you live a life of hardship, of struggle and pain, God can use you so much more. And that's who the extraordinary people are. Those are the people that fight and battle and suffer. And those are the people that God uses and can just do great things. And I love that idea. And I really feel that God is using this for both of us, that we can be a testimony, that we can just show what God has done, and show how we, despite these things, have persevered. And that's what it means to me, just overcoming hardship, character building, and being of service. No matter where you're at, God can use you.
So my take on this statement is, like I always thought this statement, extraordinary things happen to extraordinary people. I always thought that was interesting because, you look at what me and my mother have been through, and, we can think of being diagnosed with autism or losing some function of your legs and having to go around in a wheelchair. You can think that that's a difficult, awful thing, or you can see that as extraordinary, because extraordinary means not ordinary. And Mom talks about how God can use the ugly parts of your life. Maybe something extraordinary like that happened because we're extraordinary people and we have an extraordinary destiny ahead of us, and I think that's kind of cool.
Well, thank you so much for watching our first episode of The Heart of the Dragon.
If you liked what you saw today, please remember to hit the subscribe button below, and then hit the bell if you'd like to see notifications on our future videos. And like she said, thank you so much for joining us.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.